If you've if you've been looking at your financial future lately and feeling a sudden, intense sense of vertigo, I promise you are absolutely not alone.
No, you really aren't. It's a lot to take in right now.
It is. Today is Tuesday, March 3, 2026. And today, we were taking on a mission to decode a massive, highly detailed financial analysis report, one that breaks down the fluctuations in the very structure of Social Security benefits for this exact month.
Yeah, and it's an incredibly timely set of documents to dig into. The systems governing these benefits are vast. The rules change based on, tiny details. And quite frankly, the sheer volume of information can be intimidating for anyone trying to plan their life.
That is precisely why we're here. Because whether you are actively planning your own future, or maybe you're trying to help a parent navigate their retirement, or, you're just insanely curious about the mechanics of how these massive national financial systems actually operate.
Which is a valid reason to be here, by the way.
Exactly. This deep dive is your shortcut to being well-informed. Our goal today is to help you understand the mechanics, avoid some very real, very costly financial traps, and ultimately protect the assets that you have worked a lifetime to build.
Because Social Security isn't just a government program, it is a mathematical equation that you are a part of.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the sheer amount of media noise out there right now. If you've glanced at the news lately, you have probably seen the figure of $2,400 constantly being thrown around when it comes to March 2026 benefits.
Oh, it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. And honestly, it seems like it's causing a lot of false hope.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of how financial information gets distorted in the headlines. Let's clear the air immediately. That $2,400 figure you are seeing is absolutely not a fixed, flat payment that everyone is suddenly going to receive.
Right, so you can't just check the headlines and assume your deposit is going to magically match it.
No, not at all. Instead, that number represents a ceiling within the average benefit range after the recent cost of living adjustment, or KOLA, has been applied. It's the top end of an average, not a universal guarantee.
So it's essentially a cap on the average. That makes so much more sense. But the actual math behind this is what we all really need to understand.
Right.
The material points out that the COLA for 2026 is 3.2%. Since we're in March now, that adjustment has settled into a stable operational cycle. Can we look at the hard numbers to give a real sense of what that 3.2% actually looks like in practice?
Let's run the exact math. It's a simple percentage increase, but understanding your specific baseline is the foundation of managing your retirement budget. So if your previous benefit was $2,000, that 3.2% increase means your payment now becomes approximately $2,064.
Okay, so 64 extra dollars.
Exactly. And if your previous benefit was sitting a bit higher, say at $2,200, you are looking at an increase to roughly $2,270.
Meaning you really have to know what your specific baseline was before January to know what you should be getting today.
Yes.
But it's not just about knowing how much you can spend on groceries this month, right? The analysis suggests that knowing this exact math is actually a defensive tool.
What's fascinating here is how this simple math serves as a vital diagnostic tool for your entire financial profile. Think of it like a check engine light for your benefits.
A check engine light. I like that.
Yeah, because if you look at your payment receipt and it does not reflect this exact 3.2% increase from your old baseline, you shouldn't just shrug it off as a rounding error.
It's not just the government rounding down.
No, that discrepancy is a major red flag. It actively signals that there might be a record error in the system, or worse, there is an unexplained deduction silently eating away at your funds. Verifying the math is how you protect your money.
Treating a benefit statement like a diagnostic test is such a smart way to look at it. But obviously, you can't check the math until the check actually clears. And that brings up a massive logistical nightmare.
Oh, the disbursement.
Yeah. When you stop and think about paying millions upon millions of people every single month, if everyone logged in to check their deposit on the first of the month, the national banking system would completely melt down.
It would crash instantly.
So how does the Social Security Administration manage to disperse all these funds without crashing the grid?
It's a logistical hurdle on a scale most people can't even fathom. The solution they use is essentially a massive staggered schedule. They operate a disbursement calendar that is based entirely on the beneficiary's birth date.
So birth dates are the key.
Exactly. By spreading the payments out into specific tranches over the course of the month, They prevent that massive single-day bottleneck in the banking infrastructure.
I'm assuming that's why people get so confused about when they are actually supposed to be paid.
Oh, constantly.
What does that staggered schedule actually look like for this month, for March 2026?
It operates like clockwork once you know your group. So if your birthday falls between the 1st and the 10th of any given month, your payment is scheduled for the second Wednesday, which for this month is March 13th.
Okay. 1st to the 10th goes on the 13th.
Right. Now, if your birthday is between the 11th and the 20th, you get paid on the third Wednesday, which is March 20th.
Got it.
And if you were born toward the end of the month, between the 21st and the 31st, your date is the fourth Wednesday, March 27th.
That structure makes a lot of sense for the general retirement population. But there is a major strategic note in the documents regarding people who receive supplemental security income.
Yes, SSI.
Right, SSI. Those payments don't follow the bursary rule at all, do they?
They do not.
SSI is prioritized for the absolute top of the month, the 1st. And because the calendar has its quirks, March 1st, 2026 actually fell on a Friday.
Which is a crucial detail, because the first was a regular business day. Those SSI payments already went out right at the top of the month.
But what if it hadn't been a Friday?
If the first had been a weekend or a holiday, the administration would have paid it out on the business day prior just to ensure the funds were available. But for this specific March, it hit exactly on Friday the 1st.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because knowing when the check clears is one thing, but how the administration arrives at your specific personal benefit amount is a totally different ballgame.
It really is.
The benefit isn't just pulled out of thin air based on your last salary. The analysis breaks down the core formula, and it all revolves around what they call the 35-year rule.
The 35-year rule is the absolute foundation of the entire Social Security equation. To calculate your benefit, the administration takes the average of your 35 highest earning years in the workforce.
35 years is a long time.
It is. But to be fair to you, they do adjust those past earnings for inflation so that a dollar you earned back in the 1990s is weighed fairly in today's economy.
That sounds perfectly reasonable until you read the fine print. Because there is a massive trap hidden inside this rule for people who might have taken time out of the workforce.
A huge trap.
Let's say we have someone who decides to retire early. Or maybe they took a decade off to raise children or care for an aging parent. They reach retirement age, but they only have 25 years of work history on their official record. The administration doesn't just average those 25 years, do they?
They absolutely do not. The formula strictly requires 35 years. So they take your 25 earning years, and then they fill those remaining 10 blank years with literal zeros.
Oh, wow. Zeros.
It is mathematically devastating. Imagine trying to calculate a high school GPA, but for a third of your classes, you received a flat 0.
You'd tank your GPA.
Completely. It doesn't matter how well you did in the other classes. Those zeros drastically drag down the mathematical average of your lifetime earnings.
Huh.
And because your benefit is based on that average, it directly translates to a permanently lower monthly payment for the rest of your life.
That is a brutal reality for anyone considering leaving the workforce early. And beyond ensuring you have a full 35 years of data, there's another massive variable, the age lever.
Right, the decision of exactly when you choose to start claiming your benefits.
Looking at the numbers here, taking benefits early comes with a very heavy cost. The absolute minimum age is 62, but pulling the trigger then results in a permanent reduction of up to 30% of your full benefit amount.
It's a steep penalty for early access. Conversely, if you have the financial stability to wait, delaying your claim is one of the most powerful financial levers available in modern retirement.
Because it goes up.
Exactly. For every single year you delay claiming past your full retirement age up until age 70, the system grants you an 8% bonus credit.
8%.
That is an 8% guaranteed increase to your baseline benefit every single year you wait. In the financial world, finding a guaranteed 8% annual return backed by the government is incredibly rare.
The magic phrase you just used there is full retirement age, or FRA. But what exactly is that age? Because it seems like the goalposts have moved, and it's not the same for everyone anymore.
The goalposts have absolutely moved. Your full retirement age is entirely dependent on the year you were born.
Okay, lay it out for us.
The rules are very specific. If you were born in 1954 or earlier, your FRA is simply 66. But if you were born between 1955 and 1960, the target shifts. Your FRA increases by 2 months for every year after 1954.
So to use the specific example from the text, If someone was born in 1957, their full retirement age isn't 66 and it isn't 67.
Right.
It is exactly 66 years and 6 months.
Correct. And finally, if you were born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is fixed at 67. Knowing your exact FRA is the hinge upon which all your long-term strategy swings.
But even if we optimize our 35 years, avoid the zeros, and nail the perfect claiming age, there's a whole other layer of complexity the analysis dives into.
Okay.
We have to talk about the danger of only looking at the gross amount of your benefit on paper.
Ah, yes, the gross versus net reality.
Because as anyone who has ever received a paycheck knows, what you earn is rarely what you actually get to spend.
That is the painful difference between gross and net income, and it applies to Social Security just as much as it does to a corporate salary. That gross number we've been calculating is just the starting point.
Right.
Before that money ever hits your bank account, there are automatic deductions you have to account for. The most universal of these is Medicare Part B.
The standard premium for Medicare Part B in 2026 is $174.70 per month. That comes right off the top before you even see the deposit.
It does, but it gets far more complicated and expensive if you had a higher income in recent years.
Because the system looks back.
Always. The system always looks back. If you had high income in 2022, you trigger what is called the IRMAA surcharge.
I saw that acronym in the documents. IRMAA stands for Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. But in simple terms, what is that actually doing to your check?
Think of IRMA basically as a high earner penalty.
Yes.
If you made over a certain threshold a couple of years ago, Medicare charges you extra today.
So that $174 goes up.
Way up. If that kicks in, your automatic deduction doesn't just sit at $174.70. It can be pushed up to $384 or even higher. It directly, and sometimes surprisingly, reduces your net benefit. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these Medicare deductions are really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, the most alarming part of this analysis details a critical systemic flaw called the stealth tax trap. It is quietly impacting millions of retirees right now, and it fundamentally changes how we should view that 3.2% CLO increase.
The tax trap is arguably the most insidious mechanism in the current system. We've talked about the CLA increasing your gross benefit this year to help you keep up with the rising cost of groceries and utilities.
Right.
But the thresholds that determine if your Social Security benefits are taxed by the federal government are totally frozen in time.
Frozen?
Yes. For individuals, that threshold sits between $25,000 and $34,000. For married couples, it's between $32,000 and $44,000.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand this. Those specific dollar thresholds, when were they actually written into law?
Those brackets were locked into place back in the 1980s and the 1990s. And crucially, they have never been adjusted for inflation since.
Never adjusted since the 80s. The cost of a cup of coffee has quadrupled since then. So what are the actual consequences of applying 1980s tax brackets to 2026 incomes?
The consequence is a phenomenon known as bracket creep. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine the government saying you can only have a 10-ounce cup of water. But every year, inflation pours a little more water into your cup.
Okay.
Eventually, it spills over and the government taxes the spill, but they refuse to give you a bigger cup. That is bracket creep.
Wow.
Every year, you receive a COLA increase. Your purchasing power isn't really growing, you're just treading water against inflation. But because those tax thresholds from the 80s don't move, that small COLA increase inadvertently pushes your paper income higher, dragging more and more middle-class retirees over those outdated lines.
Meaning, you suddenly find yourself pushed into a bracket where up to 50% or even 85% of your Social Security benefits become subject to federal income tax.
Precisely. It's a stealth erosion of your wealth. The system gives you an inflation adjustment with one hand, but because of the outdated tax laws, it quietly takes a larger percentage of it back in taxes with the other.
It severely diminishes the real-world value of the CLA.
It does.
So what does this all mean? If someone is listening to this, realizing their COLA is being eaten by stealth taxes and Medicare premiums, the logical next thought is, okay, I need to keep working even while I collect benefits just to bridge the gap and stay ahead.
It's a very common and often necessary strategy, but the system is designed with strict boundaries to balance supporting retirees while managing those who remain in the workforce. If you decide to work while claiming benefits, you run right into the administration's income limit.
And these limits are incredibly strict. Let's look at the speed limits for 2026.
Let's do it.
If you are a pre-FRA worker, meaning you claimed benefits early, maybe at 62, but you haven't hit your full retirement age yet. You can only earn up to $22,320 from your job this year. That's not a lot of runway.
No, it isn't.
And if you earn beyond that limit, the penalty is severe. The administration withholds $1 of your benefits for every $2 you earn over the line.
It's a very steep penalty for trying to supplement your income. Now, in the actual year you reach your full retirement age, the rules loosen up significantly.
How much?
The earnings limit jumps to $59,520 for that specific year, and the penalty decreases slightly. They withhold $1 for every $3 you earn over the limit.
I read something interesting about those withheld funds, though. It's not like that money is just confiscated and thrown into a furnace.
Right. That is a vital point that often gets misunderstood. The money withheld because you worked over the limit isn't gone into a black hole.
Oh, good.
Once you finally reach your full retirement age, the administration recalculates your entire situation. They take all those withheld funds and they slowly pay them back to you by increasing your monthly benefit amount moving forward.
It's frustrating in the short term to see your checks reduced, but you do eventually recoup the value.
Exactly.
That has to be a huge relief for anyone who might have accidentally tripped over that earning limit. But while we're on the subject of strict rules, we need to shift focus back to supplemental security income.
Right, SSI.
Because while the standard retirement limits have some flex and eventual silver linings, SSI is a totally different environment.
Completely different. SSI is strictly a needs-based program designed as a safety net. The maximum payouts for 2026 reflect that. $943 for an individual and $1,415 for a couple.
And because it is needs-based, the administration monitors it with intense, constant scrutiny.
The word the analysis uses to describe the rules is essentially rigid. If someone is on SSI, they can't just pick up a tiny cash side job on the weekends, or even accept a generous cash gift from a family member to help with groceries without facing potential consequences.
Even the smallest change in financial reality has to be reported immediately.
And if you fail to report that $50 cash gift or that small side gig, you risk triggering what the system calls overpayment notices.
Those are terrifying.
They are terrifying letters stating that the administration paid you too much based on your newly discovered income, and now you owe them a sudden, potentially large lump sum. It can be financially devastating for someone relying on a maximum of $943 a month to survive.
Constant vigilance and immediate reporting are absolute requirements for anyone interacting with SSI.
Absolutely.
Constant vigilance seems to be the underlying theme of this entire financial analysis, especially as we look toward the horizon. As we move to the final section of the report, we have to talk about the 2033 cliff. The forecast here is incredibly sobering. The Social Security Trust Fund could be entirely depleted by the year 2033.
It is the elephant in the room of every modern financial planning discussion. To be clear, the word depleted does not mean the program goes bankrupt or vanishes into thin air.
Right, it doesn't go to zero.
No. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system funded by the payroll taxes of current workers. But if the reserve trust fund is emptied by 2033, those ongoing tax revenues will only be enough to cover a portion of the promised benefits.
So what does that look like in reality?
The report states that without legislative action from Congress to fix the shortfall, we're looking at the real possibility of a 23% across-the-board cut to everyone's benefits.
The 23% cut is massive. If someone is barely scraping by now, losing almost a quarter of their income is the kind of number that can make you feel completely helpless.
It is.
But the source material pivots hard here. It doesn't just leave us with doom and gloom statistics. It offers direct, actionable advice on how to actively defend your financial future right now. The analysis outlines 3 distinct strategies that we can all execute today.
Let's hear them.
The first is to audit your data.
This is perhaps the most crucial defensive step anyone can take, regardless of whether you are 25 or 65. You need to go to saa.gov and create a My Social Security account.
To check those 35 years.
Yes. You have to verify that 35-year earnings record we talked about earlier. The analysis explicitly warns that a single typo, just one mistaken digit in recording your income from a decade ago, can drag down your lifetime average.
Just a typo.
Imagine a data entry clerk accidentally typed from $4,000 instead of $40,000 for your salary in 2012.
Yeah.
That one error could literally cost you thousands of dollars over the lifespan of your retirement.
Because it drops your average.
Exactly. You are the only one who knows your true work history. You have to be your own auditor.
That is terrifying. but entirely fixable if you catch it. Strategy number 2 is to optimize your delivery. The report strongly advises switching to direct deposit immediately if you are still receiving paper checks.
It's not just about the convenience of avoiding the bank line.
No, it's a major defensive move. Mail theft is a rising issue, and direct deposit prevents your check from being stolen out of your mailbox.
Plus, it ensures your funds are available in your account the very morning of your payment date, entirely bypassing any postal service delays.
Right. And the third strategy is the most comprehensive, and it requires the most planning. Diversify your income. You must never let Social Security be your sole source of income.
Because of those outdated 1980s tax thresholds we discussed, relying solely on this system exposes you to severe stealth taxation and bracket creep.
So what do they recommend?
The report recommends working with a tax professional to strategically plan withdrawals from your IRAs or 401ks. A professional can help you navigate around those tax traps, ensuring you keep more of your own money rather than losing your COLA to the IRS. This raises an important question about how actively we manage our own financial histories.
We tend to view Social Security as this automated, benevolent system that will just take care of us when the time comes. But this deep dive proves that it requires active defensive management long before you ever file a claim.
It absolutely does. It is a highly complex machine, and if you don't understand the levers, the 35 years, the age you claim, the tax brackets, the machine will work against you.
And that is the perfect summary of what we've uncovered today. Social Security isn't just a passive gift from the government. It is a lifelong asset. You have paid into it with every single paycheck you've ever earned.
Every single one.
Understanding these exact mechanisms, why the zeros matter, how the tax traps catch you, the strict limits on working, and the reality of the upcoming 2033 cliff, that is how you protect your life's work.
Yeah,
It's about turning confusion and media noise into a concrete strategy.
definitely.
But as we wrap up, there's one final lingering thought that this whole analysis really brings to the surface for me.
What's that?
Well, when we consider that this massive foundational system is heavily relying on rigid tax thresholds set back in the 1980s, while simultaneously facing a massive funding cliff in 2033, it begs a really profound question.
Which is?
Will future generations have to completely decouple the idea of age from the idea of retirement? If the math of the 20th century no longer fits the longer lifespans and the persistent inflation of the 21st century, perhaps we are on the verge of entirely reinventing what our golden years actually look like.
That is a very real possibility.
Something to chew on as you log in to audit your own records this week. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.